All right, today we're gonna review how to find zeros from polynomials and how to write an equation of a polynomial given the zeros. So hopefully today is gonna be a pretty easy day. I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page with zeros because what we need to get to is how to find the zeros from a higher order polynomial. And to do that, you have to know how to find the zeros, and you have to know how to factor a polynomial. So we're going to kind of be reviewing this week just to make sure we're all on the same page and we all have the same kind of foundation before we get into the newer stuff. Because if you don't know how to find zeros or how to factor, finding the zeros of higher order polynomials is a lot harder. Whenever it doesn't necessarily have to be. So today's all about finding the zeros. We're going to go through the notes. Once you're done with the notes, you're going to get a worksheet. And then when you're done with the worksheet, you're going to keep it. Because on the last 5 minutes, in the last 5 minutes of class, y'all are going to go over the answers just to make sure y'all are all on the same page and you know what to do. So once you're done with your worksheet, keep it. In the last 5 minutes of class, you'll go over the answers and kind of grade yourself. All right. So on number 1, I had y'all start off kind of easy. So for this one, our zeros would be just the opposite. And we've done this before. But it would be a positive 3 for that one. And for this one, it would be a negative 4. Now, the reason we do the opposite, and this is what you need to understand, the reason we do the opposite is because if you were to plug in 3 minus 3 is 0. That's why we call them zeros. We also call them solutions and roots and x-intercepts. But yeah, that's the reason we call them zeros, because if you plug in your answer, it should equal 0. So if you don't remember the trick, you can always take your factor, that set of parentheses, and set it equal to 0 and solve it from there. So you could add 3, and x would be positive 3. Okay, so if you forget the trick, not a big deal. Just remember, set that factor equal to 0. All right, on number 2, the reason I kind of wanted to explain that again is because we have 3 zeros on this one. What you want to do is kind of count how many x's you have, and how many x's you have is the number of zeros you're going to have too. So here we have 1, 2, 3 x's, so we're going to have 3 zeros. So the first one, if we set that equal to 0, what does x equal? 0. Okay, so if you have an x that's just by itself, your 0 is 0. Okay, for our second factor, x plus 1, our 0 would be negative 1. It'd be the opposite. For the last one, x minus 7, our 0 would be positive 7. So these would be my solutions or my zeros. All right, let's move on to number 3. And we've kind of talked about this last week. Whenever you have a number in front of x, it makes it a little bit more complicated. You can't just take the opposite because you have a number in front. It makes it kind of weird. So what you can do is take this factor and set it equal to 0 and solve for x. Okay. So save the x for last. I would subtract 1 to both sides. So 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. So x equals negative 1/2. That would be one of my solutions. Now the trick is that you can still take the opposite, so negative 1, but you're going to divide by whatever's in front of x. So negative 1 over 2, and that's what I got here. So like I said, if you forget the trick, you can always set it equal to 0 and solve. All right, for my second factor, x minus 9, my 0 would be positive 9. Okay, x plus 2, my 0 would be negative 2. So those are my solutions on number 3. All right, so on number 4, I want you guys to try it. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds and then we'll check. All right, so on number 4, let's just say f of x. But my first solution, x equals 0. My second solution, I'm going to take the opposite of -4. Okay, so positive 4 over whatever's in front. So 4/3. And then my last 0 would be -5. Okay. All right, so now on the second part of your notes, we're gonna go backwards, where they give you the zeros and you have to write the equation. Okay, you have to write it in factored form. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Like I said, I tried to start out kind of easy and then go from there. I don't know why the boxes are highlighted. But, so on number 5, they give you the zeros, +4, -1, and +6. So to get our zeros, we had to do the opposite, right? So if we want to go backwards, we're going to do the opposite. Okay, so f of x equals, okay, and we're putting this in factored form. So for 4 to be one of my zeros, I'm going to have an x minus 4. Okay, for -1 to be one of my solutions, I'm going to have x plus 1. You do the opposite. Okay, and to get +6, we're going to have an x minus 6. Like I said, the reason we do the opposite is because we're trying to get it to equal 0. So if we were to plug in 6, 6 minus 6 is 0. So that's why we do the opposite. Number 6, we have 0 as one of our solutions. Okay, so in your equation, since we have just a 0 there, we need an x. Okay, technically you could put x minus 0, but if you subtract 0, it's not going to change anything. So we just put an x. All right, for our second solution, it's going to be x minus 1 and x minus 5. So remember, you're going to do the opposite. All right, number 7 is a little bit different because we have a fraction. Now a lot of people would put x minus 1/2, and technically that's right, but what I want you to do is put it in a form where it does not have a fraction. So if you look at the top of your notes, how we had like 2x plus 1, that's the form I want it in. So to get rid of our fraction, what you want to do, see how it's dividing by 2? That 1/2 says divided by 2. To get rid of the fraction, the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2, right? And we're going to do that to each term. So we're going to do that to the x too. Okay, so our 2's will cancel out on the fraction, and we have 2x minus 1. Okay, and if you kind of try to check yourself, your 0 would be +1 over 2, which is one of our solutions. So you can check yourself, okay? All right, for my second solution, I have -3. So my factored form would be x plus 3. And for the last one, I have a +6, so it's going to be x minus 6. Oh, goodness. All right, so now I want you to try the last one, and then we'll check, okay? I'll give you about 15 seconds again, and then we'll go over it. right, so on number 8, you had a fraction as a solution. Okay, so it would technically be x plus 4 over 5, right? But if we want to get rid of this fraction, the opposite of dividing by 5 is multiplying by 5, and those will cancel. Okay, and what you do to one term, you have to do to the other term. So this will be 5x. So one of my factors is 5x plus 4, and then you should have gotten x plus 2. Here we go. X plus 2 and x minus 3. All right, so this is what you're going to do on your worksheet today. Like I said, I want to build a solid foundation before we get into the harder stuff. So do your worksheet, then hold on to it, because at the end of class you're going to check your answers. All right, y'all have a good day.